Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting, February 3rd, 2020. We can call this meeting to order. We'll start with our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Bob, would you mind?
I'd be glad to. Dear Lord, we ask for your presence tonight to bless us with wisdom and courage to conduct the business of the city. We ask that you help us make decisions that are good for our whole city, to help everyone stay safe and secure and prosperous in our community. Lord, we also ask that you watch over our first responders that are out working late every night, guarding our well-being, ensuring our security and safety in our community. And Lord, we also ask you to watch over our military men and women, especially those serving overseas and in what may well be hostile territory. We ask all of these things of you, Lord, tonight in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me. Sorry, guys. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just not catching on, did I?
That's part of the new.
And then I'm staring at you, Donna. I'm like,
That's part of the new gig, Lisa.
I was smiling at her. She thought I was being friendly.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Bob. Let the roll call show that everyone is present.
So noted.
Mayor McFarland, regarding our minutes, I move approval of the City Council regular meeting minutes from January 21st, and that we accept for the record the Healthcare Benefit Trust Board of Trustees minutes from October 18th, Historic Preservation Commission minutes from December 18th, and the Fire Personnel Retirement Board meetings from November 4th as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Can I get all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. It is the day after Super Bowl.
Yeah.
a little slow.
Yeah. Item D, claims.
Mayor McFarland, I move to accept and pay the claims dated January 15th through the 28th, 2020, as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, claims are approved. Meeting agenda approval. I do have one change since we have an executive session tonight. I'm going to move item N to just before item M, as in the executive session. So the notes will come before the executive session. Anybody else have any other changes? Mr. Haynes? Okay.
Mayor McFarland, I move for the approval of the agenda as corrected.
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the amended agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, agenda's been approved. We have no special presentations, so we'll move to consent agenda items. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine matters and will be enacted by one motion and one roll call vote of the council. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or member of the public so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence of the agenda. Does anyone at the dais have any changes or
None.
anyone from the public? Any changes, Larry? Anything? Cool. Okay. Seeing none, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
Mayor McFarland,
Go ahead, Mary.
I move for the approval of the consent agenda.
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Councilmember Courtson.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next item is item H. This is our public comments portion of the agenda tonight, and at which point in time I'll open the floor for any public comments. Just a reminder that these are not agendized, so you're welcome to talk to a council and we'll listen, but there'll be no comments on them other than to ask staff to follow up. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to approach the council? Okay, seeing none, then I'll close the floor and move to the next item, which is I-1.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff recommends that the mayor and city council approve a contract with DPC Enterprises for the purchase and delivery of sodium hypochlorite for the city's wastewater reclamation facility. The purchase of this agreement shall not exceed the annual amount budgeted for these products in our operating budget. We did go out to a formal solicitation for this contract and found that DPC was the lowest and most responsive bidder. And this was a price and quality evaluation as well. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Oh, and just, so this product is the disinfection that we use for our effluent stream at the wastewater plant.
Anybody have any questions? Kevin, what's the amount?
530.
We budget $530,000 for all of the chemicals put together. This one we purchase right around 150,000 gallons a year, and this one is at $83 cents a gallon. So that gives you an idea of where that budget item is.
Mayor? Could you repeat the chemical name? And the only reason I'm asking is because I thought it sounded a lot like I-2 as well.
They're very similar. Well, they're actually just opposites. So sodium hypochlorite, it is the
Okay.
disinfectant that we use to make sure we comply with our discharge permit limits before we discharge our water. The second item that we'll be asking a contract for is sodium bisulfite. That removes the hypochlorite from the system because we can't discharge that into the wash.
I knew I should have paid more attention in chemistry class in high school. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, anybody else have any questions? All right, then, Gloria, will consider an ordinance number, please.
Ordinance number 3184, an ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, accepting a bid from DPC Enterprises LP, authorizing expenditure of public funds, authorizing the execution of a contract with or purchase order to DPC Enterprises LP.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of ordinance number 3184, although I don't know what sodium hypochlorite is either.
Bleach.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Gloria, can you get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes?
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Councilmember Cortson.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next is I-2.
Thank you. Staff recommends that the mayor and city council authorize a contract with Univar Solutions Incorporated for the purchase of sodium bisulfite for the city's wastewater reclamation facility. Again, this is the chemical that removes the disinfectant from the effluent stream before we discharge that either to the wash or to our recharge facility or for reuse. So we did go through a formal solicitation and found that Univar Solutions was the lowest and responsive bidder that provided us with the submittal. Their product is $1.71 per gallon, and that includes delivery. And then, again, that comes right out of our operating budget, which has a total line item for chemicals and horticultural products of $530,000. This does have an option for additional years, 2 additional one-year periods if we want to extend the contract. And the previous contract was the same way. So with that, be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Powell?
This basically helps get right.
Yeah, so once we inject the disinfectant into the effluent stream, it sits in our contact basin, and it's just a large concrete ditch that allows contact time for it to disinfect. And then at the end of that stream, we inject the bisulfite, and that eliminates the hypochlorite.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, then I'll entertain an ordinance number, please, Gloria.
Ordinance number 185, an ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, accepting the bid from Univar Solutions USA, Inc. to provide sodium bisulfite, authorizing expenditure of public funds, and authorizing the execution of a contract with or purchase order to Univar Solutions USA, Inc.
Mayor McFarland, I move for the passage of ordinance number 3185 as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Can I get a roll call vote, please, Gloria?
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes?
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Councilmember Quartson.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. Okay, next item, Scott, I think this is you, I-3.
Mayor McFarland, members of the council, this is actually a follow-up item from council meeting last month, which you approved an agreement with, a contract with SmartWorks Plus. This actually accomplishes two things this evening. As the RCA indicates, first of all, it asks that you accept the retirement notice of Larry Raines effective March the 20th. So his last day as a direct or regular city employee would be March the 20th. And approve his inclusion on Schedule C, which is the schedule to the SmartWorks contract, which lists those individuals who are to be contracted. And the terms and conditions are specifically the compensation due, effective on March the 30th, 2020. So with your approval of this, we'll be accomplishing the two things. And as you know, the city charter requires a 45-day notice, a resignation from the city manager. This would accomplish that, and then it would also take care of the paperwork for Mr. Raines to be included contracting back with SmartWorks effective on the 30th of March. Either myself or our city attorney will be glad to field any questions you might have.
I think we've had a good discussion and opportunity.
Okay. All right, then. This has no ordinance, but it does need action, correct? Motion. Just a motion, so I'll entertain a motion to,
Move approval.
Second?
all right. I have a motion and a second to consider approving the matters related to the retirement and inclusion of Larry D. Raines within the roster of employees for the SmartWorks contract, Exhibit C, which was presented to everybody. Can I get a, do I need a roll call on this? I don't think so, do I? All right, it's been moved and seconded then. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's approved. Do we have to throw you a party now, Larry? Okay. Next is J1, and Gloria, I think this is you. Or do you want me to read it?
Oh. Sure, I'm sorry.
Boards and commissions.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, before you, we have a reappointment of Kurt Burr and Bauer and Michael Ardementis to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and also to accept the resignation of Garrett Powell from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
Okay. So we normally do this because we want to kind of call out the folks who have volunteered and those who have been volunteered in the past. So really big thank you to Kurt and Michael, and also to Garrett for his past service on the board. And are any of them here so we can
Kurt's
thank
here.
them publicly?
I was gonna
Kurt,
say,
stand up, please.
Kurt.
All right.
Thank you, Kurt.
you.
Thank you. I know you haven't approved yet, but
Mayor, can I make a comment?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Garrett resigned. He said he liked, this was his second term on the, and he's at Bank of America, and he doesn't have the time to be able to make the meetings at this point in time. So he said to be sure and thank Steve and all the people that he had worked with on this, and he enjoyed doing it.
Great, well, thank you, Mr. Powell. All right, then I'll entertain a motion to approve and accept the resignation as well.
So moved. Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the two new appointees and the resignation from Mr. Powell, Garrett Powell. Clarify that.
Yeah, there we go.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So, thank you. And again, thank you for your service, Kurt, since you're here, and also to Michael, who's not here, but, and Garrett also for his past. Next item is item K1. Mr. Tice, or no?
Oh.
It's not Mr. Tice.
You've changed.
You have more hair.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'm actually filling in for Planning Director Tice this evening to cover this item on the agenda. It's regarding the annexation known as the Regional Gateway Commerce Center annexation. Just to give you a scope of where this particular area is that's being considered, is a 3.52 acre area that lies just west of the Hennis Road alignment and north of the Cornman Road alignment. Of course, it's located south of Jimmy Kerr, and it abuts the city limits on the south and eastern boundaries. A little bit of background regarding this annexation is back in October of 2019, staff provided a briefing about the potential prospect of these 3.52 acres being annexed. On November 8th, there was a blank annexation petition filed in accordance with Arizona revised statutes. And then in December of last year, there was a public hearing held in accordance with the state statutes. There was no comments received during that public hearing. And then on January 22nd of this year, a signed petition was filed. Now, this evening, staff will be asking you to consider two items. The first being the acceptance of the infrastructure and services plan for the requested area to be annexed, and that would be done by resolution. And then the second item would be the annexation itself of the 3.52 acres, as well as the initial city zoning of Urban Ranch, and that would be done by ordinance. Now, the infrastructure and services plan that you'd be considering this evening is in accordance with a state requirement where basically on or before the date the governing body adopts the ordinance that would annex the territory, there has to be an establishment of policy or procedure to ensure appropriate levels of infrastructure and services to serve the anticipated new development. The infrastructure and services plan was included in the RCA as an attachment, but it simply covers various aspects such as future roadways, utilities, services such as police, fire and emergency, and general government services, as well as sewer, parks and rec, and street maintenance. As you can see, this is a fairly isolated area. The annexation area is highlighted in yellow there on the screen. Ultimately, it would be served by the extension of Hennis Road. Currently, Hennis Road stops on the north side of Jimmy Kerr. Basically, the immediate plan would be to run Hennis Road from an interchange with I-8 from the south, and then it would be installed at the developer's expense. There's already been an agreement with the Federal Highway Administration for the possibility of this interchange, and the road would ultimately continue north and at some point potentially cross Jimmy Kerr. But in the interim, there would be a east-west connection via Hatfield Road that would lead you over to Peart. There's also some other potential connectivity via the extension of Cornman that would take you over to Cox Road, where there's currently an at-grade crossing with the Union Pacific Railroad. In terms of utilities, sewer is 1 mile away, so that would be the largest challenge to the development in terms of infrastructure. However, what's anticipated will happen is that as development occurs between that area and this site, the other areas would be responsible for extending the sewer that would be necessary to serving this, or there would be some other alternative agreement to provide wastewater outlet. Water, gas, and cable are all roughly a half mile away at Jimmy Kerr and the Hennis alignment, and there is power that immediately abuts the site, however. It follows the Cornman Road alignment. Staff had concluded that based on the remoteness of the site and the limited development that's in that area, that the infrastructure and services plan was adequate, that it essentially will get developed as areas adjacent to that area begin to develop. Regarding the ordinance for the annexation, the initial zoning, this is a zoomed in area that shows you the property specifically that's being annexed. It's basically a triangular wedge. The Casa Grande Canal lies to the north, Cornman Road alignment lies to the south, and it's about 33 feet off from the Hennis Road alignment. This area is currently zoned in the county as general rural. Per state statutes, when the city annexes the property, it has to take on a zone district that's the most similar to the county zoning without it being less restrictive. And so urban ranch would be the most equivalent initial zoning designation that would be included in the ordinance. So essentially the recommendation is that the mayor and city council adopt resolution number 5215, the infrastructure and services plan. And staff also recommends that the mayor and city council adopt ordinance 3186, which is the annexation of the 3.52 acres and the initial urban ranch zoning designation.
Mr. Powell.
I just would like to comment. I like this format where we're going on to Henniston, what was in the Dreamport plan, where it kind of cut across and it ignores Hennis. And Hennis is going to be a very important road and coming off I-8. George has been very patient. We've done a lot of work to get that able to happen when the time's right. So I just wanted to comment. I think it is advantageous to have the connection be made there, and of course that little piece is necessary to do that.
And that little piece is owned by the same landowner that owns all the rest to the south, right?
Yep.
You're correct, yes.
So this is at their request?
Yes, they were the sole owner of the annexation, so it made the filing of the petition pretty seamless, yeah.
Okay.
Just a process question. Do we do an infrastructure and services plan on all annexations?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Huddleston, yes, it's a
Okay.
requirement that that be done.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Questions, comments? All right, seeing none, then I'll entertain a resolution number, please. Go ahead.
Resolution number 5215, a resolution of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, adopting the Regional Gateway Conference Center Annexation Area Infrastructure and Services Plan.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of resolution number 5215 as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please, on this resolution 5215?
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes?
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Councilmember Quartson.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, and then the second half of this, K1, is the ordinance number 3186. I'll Entertain an ordinance number, please, Gloria.
Ordinance number 3186, an ordinance extending and increasing the corporate limits of the city of Casa Grande, Pinal County, state of Arizona, pursuant to the provisions of Title 9, Chapter 4, Article 7, Arizona Revised Statutes and amendments thereto, by annexing thereto certain territory contiguous to the existing city limits of the city of Casa Grande, and authorizing initial zoning of urban ranch for said territory.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of ordinance number 3186 as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Councilmember Cortson.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. Okay, next item on the agenda is our L item, which is our public meeting notices. Item L1. I can see that.
Yeah, she has darker hair.
Yes.
Oh, and
Ooh,
dramatic appearance.
and better swipes.
Thank you, George.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. This is a presentation tonight for Lakeland here tonight in place of Mr. Paul Tice, planning director. So this is the Jules Desert Sands Local Historic Landmark sign designation before you tonight. So this site is located at 1515 North Pinal Avenue. Back in 1947, the building was constructed. In 1950, the site was annexed into the city limits of Casa Grande. And then in 1955, the sign was installed on the property by A&A Sign Company of Phoenix, Arvil L. Gamel, an inductee into the Arizona Sign Association Hall of Fame. So what we're doing tonight is part of our general plan policy goal, C7.21. The city shall acknowledge the importance of developing a strong base of community support for historic preservation efforts, particularly in this case for signs. And our sign landmarks criteria was based on the sign methodology with the Historic Sign Survey. The signs shall follow the certain criteria, must be over 40 years old, displays a unique or novelty design, displays good integrity where most of the intrinsic elements of the design of the sign are present, contributes to the context where the sign enhances the environment or associated property and or business, and in most cases the sign would be in its original location. Based on this criteria for the landmark designation, the Jules Desert Sands sign falls under all of this criteria. And the next criteria goes to our ordinance, the Historic Preservation Landmark Ordinance, and there's several criteria, 6 criteria, which 6 being basically the sign owner having consent with this designation. According to the criteria, the Desert Jules Sands sign falls under all this criteria, and I'm going to go over a few of the criteria that's highlighted on your screen. It's a little slow tonight. So the first criteria is that the sign possesses some special character, historic or aesthetic interest or value as part of the community or cultural region or locality. And the sign significant is tied to the bar restaurant for the Jules Desert Sands Bar. It's been associated with the property for over 65 years. And as I had mentioned, the sign is dated to 1955. So the next criteria is if the sign is related to historic personages. And the sign, as I had mentioned, was installed by the A&A Sign Company of Phoenix. And I had mentioned Arvil Gamel, an inductee into the Arizona Sign Association Hall of Fame. And as you'll see on this slide, in the bottom right-hand corner, there is the Desert Jules sign there. And this was the article of when that sign was placed onto the building.
Our next criteria in the ordinance for landmark sign designation is that it embodies the distinguishing characters of an architectural style. And as you see the picture of the sign, the style is a box sign flagged from a steel post combined with a cocktail glass shape applied to the background with neon lettering. And then mounted above the main sign is the neon Budweiser sign that was recently restored. And so not only does the age of the sign provide significance, but the uniqueness of the sign's design contributes to the recommendation that the sign be designated as a local historic sign landmark. Other landmark criteria is that the unique location or physical characteristic represents an established and physical feature of the neighborhood. And the sign's architectural style is tied to the bar restaurant of the building. It represents the neon that ties to the age of the sign. The sign is a prominent feature along the Pinal Avenue corridor into the city limits. The age of the sign and the sign's unique architectural style lends itself to eye candy as you're driving south on Pinal Avenue. And as I had mentioned, it's tied to the establishment of the bar restaurant, and the sign has been in existence for 64 years.
Laura, is, now Lee Blackburn, he's good with this? The owner?
Yes, we have retained the owner's signature on this request.
Does it prevent him from, if he sells his business or sells the building, what happens to the sign? Does it have to stay there, or can it be preserved, or?
Mr. Mayor, the sign basically is preserved as a landmark, so if you want to change out the copy of the sign, he can come back to the Historic Preservation Commission for certificate of appropriateness. One thing that the sign does is if a new owner comes in and wants to put up an additional sign, they can, and this sign is actually silent to our sign code, so they actually would be allowed more signage, as this sign does not count against our allocation towards the sign code regulations.
So can it be moved?
It can be moved within the site, correct. Similar to what we did with the Cougar sign, it was designated as a historic landmark, but it wasn't in its
So it
original
can't leave
location, it
that
was
site.
moved on the site.
It can't leave that site.
If it leaves the site, then it doesn't have its historical designation, correct.
Can they move it from the site?
They can move it onto the site in a different location, but once it leaves the site, then it loses its historical designation.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, I think underneath the code, once you've designated something as a landmark, it's not supposed to change. They're not allowed to change without getting a certificate of appropriateness from the Historic Preservation Commission. So they are restricted when you do this from changing the copy of the sign without the permission of the HPC, or from changing the physical location of the sign even without that. One of the things you did when you adopted that code to allow for the potential to have historic signage, but nonetheless allow for new businesses to have signage, is, as Ms. Blickman said, not count it against their signage, meaning an owner could put up there an additional sign, whereas the code otherwise wouldn't permit them to do that.
I'm just curious, though, if 20 years from now, Lee Blackburn's not here, his family sells the bar, it's no longer a bar, so maybe the sign's not appropriate for the business that's there. Can it be moved to our sign park, for example? Could it be moved to the sign park?
So there's
it might be more appropriate.
Right, so there's a couple of different things, like one, the council needs to delist it as a landmark, so you could look at something in there and saying, we believe it would be appropriate to, move it to the sign park, for example. I think the code contemplates you always have that ability to say that it's not a landmark anymore, or to allow that to be moved without necessarily changing.
So does it make it harder then for somebody to come in and take it also? Like our silver bullet sign that was kind of sold out from underneath us. Can somebody come in and buy the sign and take it away?
Yeah. Well, under your code, they're not supposed to be able to move it, so if anyone decided to do that, they'd be violating the provision of, of your landmark designation. You can't ever stop anyone from really doing anything they want to do, but they would be violating provisions of our code if they did do that.
It doesn't totally protect the sign.
nothing really protects the sign, right? I mean, but it protects it more because you've designated it as a landmark, meaning that if someone came and did their due diligence, they'd realize that they were not able to change the sign or relocate the sign without first getting permission from the Historical Preservation Commission.
All right, and I'm not against it, I'm just trying to understand what does that designation mean for that sign, that's all.
I have a question.
Sorry, Mr. Powell had a question too. Go ahead.
Oh, we have an expert sitting back there with, about the sign park. Have you visited with any of these people? Would that be their intention? Do you know if for instance, they did, the building burned down or they had to sell it and not use the sign there anymore, that they would allow it to be taken to the sign park?
Mayor, could we ask her to come to the podium for a
Wouldn't this be appropriate public hearing part?
Yeah, this is there is a public hearing portion of this. You want to wait for that?
Okay.
Can we do that?
Sure, that's fine with me.
Then she can come up to the podium.
Sorry, Marge.
Sorry, Marge.
The other thing I wanted to mention is there's an objection to this sign from the mayor. He wants to get rid of that Budweiser sign.
It's one of my favorite signs in town. What are you talking about? Sir, I'm sorry I interrupted. Go ahead.
Thank you,
finish
Mr.
and
Mayor,
then we'll-
council members. And as I had mentioned, support on this designation. And just moving on with further information on our ordinance, and according to our ordinance, Historic Preservation Code, that a matter of public policy, that the protection and enhancement of historic landmarks and stuff is the goal of the Historic Preservation Ordinance. Moving on to staff's analysis, the Historic Preservation Commission recommended a 5-0 vote to forward a favorable recommendation on designating the sign as a local historic landmark. City staff is in support of designating the Jules Desert signs as a local historic sign landmark based on the fact that it meets all the criteria for local sign landmark designation. Staff did send out public notification and comments, and city staff has not received any public comments on this request as of tonight. Staff's recommendation is that the mayor and city council approve the designation for the Jules Desert Sands as a local historic landmark. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Okay. Do we want to throw it open to public first?
Sure.
Can we do that? All right. So the floor for public comment on this particular subject, which is the historic designation of the Jules Desert Sand sign. And Marge, maybe you can help with some clarification.
Marge Jantz, 901 North Morrison Avenue. I'm the chairperson for the Preservation Commission. Yes, I have spoken with Lee Blackburn on more than one occasion. He is really enthused about this. Any of you that know him know that he loves that sign. He has it totally restored. And it, in answer to a concern that I was hearing a few moments ago, what if that became something else? That sign could stay there, but there's always that option that with going through the certificate of appropriateness and going to the commission, if there was a proposal to move it to another location, to save, just trying to save our history by the process that we're going through right now, because we have lost two signs, and we're just trying to save our history. So this is a way to save it, so that doesn't happen. And then for future, if we needed to move it, if the place was no longer in business, and we could move it to the sign park or out on Florence Boulevard, it's an option. It's just, are there any other specific questions? I don't.
I think that should be part of the agreement, but it's not at this time, is it?
It's what?
That's not part of the agreement at this time, that it would go.
No, it's just, this agreement is just in accordance to.
Love to see that be part of the agreement, that if they do decide to move it and lose the landmark status, that it would go to the, as part of our history, as you say, is trying to keep it would go to the sign park or to the Historical Society.
Well, it's a point well taken. Our forms just don't address any of that. So is that something you feel like needs to be added to it before we make the
Can
designations?
you legally
or-
require that?
So first, it's not part of your ordinance. Second, I wouldn't recommend that you start taking people's signs. Unless you're willing to compensate them for that, right? So mostly what you have done here and staff has worked and Ms. Chance has worked to make sure that the owners understand the importance of the designation as well as the restrictions that come along with it. But, you know, as far as putting something in and saying you must move this sign if, or you must do this, right now our code would not even permit us to do that. We could always try to contract or otherwise with them, you know, to do something of that nature. But again, anyone wanting to even move that sign, including a new owner, would have to get a certificate of appropriateness. So the Historic Preservation Commission would have the opportunity at that time to address it and to suggest to the owners some of the other potential uses for the sign if they were asking that the sign be removed.
Well, Attorney, my idea wasn't that they had to give it away. Some of these people really want to have the landmark designation. I was just wondering if they would want to have that kept in the sign park for the history, but I can understand what you're saying. It shouldn't be part of the ordinance, and I was just hoping that, I know a lot of them really want to have that landmark status if that would be something they'd be interested in doing, but you explained it and I understand.
It's just not in the ordinance, so it wasn't addressed. But it will be addressed later. And we have, just as a side note, someone else in town that has a historic sign, and he'd like to get rid of it. He wants to give it to us. And I'm like, it would really be better. It's been in this location since 1943. It would be better if it just stayed here. So we're just still having conversations about that one. But what they're doing in other communities, and they do in Mesa, they have done it several times, is that when people really do want to get rid of their signs, then they donate it to, in their case, their foundation is a 501c3, but they donate the sign to the 501c3, get the tax write-off, and then, you know, the preservation people benefit and are able to put it where they'd like to have it. It's all about saving our history and not letting them get away.
Right. Okay. Any other questions, Matt?
I think it'd be neat if the Historical Society Sign Park, somebody went to these people after and says, hey, would you be interested in contemplating someday donating it to, you know, just like you were talking about, because taking someone's personal property, I don't think is a good thing. And he might, you know, that something might happen, might need some money someday, might need to sell your sign, you know. Laura, real question is, does this designation allow them maybe to get some grants at some point then? Like would that help? Or is, you know, I don't know if you can answer that or not.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Herman, at this time, I'm not aware of any grants around that they could, but
at
that
least
is
it
a
would help.
possibility that we
But
could look at and even possibly maybe, you know, maintenance and stuff down the road too, to help sign owners to keep them preserving those historic signs.
So yeah, Mrs. Blakeman asked me the other night, we were at the chamber event, and she was excited about these signs, and she says, Matt, you've been here a long time, do you have any stories? I can't tell any stories up here about the desert sandstone, okay? We'll just leave it at that. But I've known Mr. Blackburn my whole life, pretty much. My dad's friends with them, and they're great people. I'm glad they're doing this. And he's a great cook, too. And he's helped out the Boys and Girls Club cooking and helps out a lot of organizations in town, and they're always there, and it's a really neat sign. So I'm glad we're doing this. No, she passed away, yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's a neat sign, and it'll be, you know, a great thing for our city. And the important thing is, if you could answer my question, I know the answer, does this cost the city anything, or does it cost the landowner, sign owner, anything to be a part of this, per se?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Herman, there is no cost for this process to go through for the applicant, and at this point, it's not costing the city any process as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
May I make one comment on your question about the grants?
Mm-hmm.
We're not aware of any such grants, But without having all these local landmarks, there has been no need to look for them.
That's,
But it is our wish and our desire to try to help some of these people that have signs that need restoration by going out to grants. So that's why it's really important to get a group of these signs designated, so we have our inventory, and then we can pursue the grant aspect.
because it can't hurt, right?
And we are the only ones in the state that are being this progressive to get it done, and all my sign friends in the other communities are a little bit envious of us.
I love it. Thanks for all your hard work.
Thank you, Marge.
Thank you, Marge.
Is there anybody else? Oh,
I signed
John?
Good evening, John McGuire, 1748. Much of what I had originally planned on speaking about has been brought up. Overwhelming comments that I get and people that I talk to through my various sources are, love. You just leave it as simple as make this a historic sign, and it's, heck yeah, we want to do that. But there are a lot of important questions here that have come up, and I'm thinking maybe we do need to revisit some of these historical ordinances that we have in the future to help Ms. Jantz get some of these things to have a little, because my questions are, what's in it for the property owner other than the fact that he's getting a designation? As a matter of fact, it seems like we're putting some restrictions on him that you've brought up that the current owner may have zero problem with, but someday he's going to have to sell that. And I'm putting this in context of some of the things we're talking about with the general plan and what that corridor may be at some point. It could be residential. Do we want a Desert Sands bar sign in front of some 3-story or 4-story apartment or condo complex or something there? Who knows what that's going to be in the future? And I also agree that, if that does occur, we don't want to make this difficult for these people to donate these signs or whatever process it is to get put in a place where we can keep our history. I don't think anybody's against keeping the history, but it seems like there's some questions that we need to maybe address in the long term to help get some of this stuff a little bit more firmed up, because you had 10 questions that I had at the same time. So, because other people were asking me, what does this mean, exactly for these people? So thank you for your time.
It's a public meeting. Is there anyone else who would like to comment? Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing portion. Mr. Powell, you had another question or comment?
Yeah, I just was wondering, how tied are the Historic Society here in Casa Grande is a nonprofit. And if it could go through them, you could take a tax. You could make money from your sign by taking a tax ingredient off of it, which would be a valuable thing to do, and hopefully have it end up with them, which then could go across the street with it.
Yeah. That's a possibility. Any other comments or questions?
I just want to make a comment, and then we're going to have the other signs going up, and that sort of is just to thanking the property owners for doing this, because there is really no benefit to them and the designation. And I just want to say my appreciation that they're allowing, because even though it's great having the neon sign park, it's great having them on the buildings where they were first created. And so just wanted to give them that thanks. And let's not overthink it too much.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Donna, did you have a question or comment?
No. Nope.
Anybody else?
You.
Okay. Then we'll move on, and I'll entertain an ordinance. Please, Gloria.
Ordinance number 3187, an ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, designating the Desert Sand signs as a local historical landmark and authorizing the city clerk to record all documents necessary to effectuate this ordinance with Pinal County Recorder's Office.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of ordinance number 3187 as presented.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Can I get a roll call vote, please, Gloria?
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Councilmember Quartson.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. Okay, well, moving on to item L2.
Mr. Mayor, council members, so this is our second request tonight regarding local landmark sign designation. This site is the Johnston's Grocery / Sophia's local historic sign landmark designation. This site is located at 301 North Picacho Street. In 1907, the building was constructed. In 1915, this was incorporated into the city limits of Casa Grande. And then in 1960, the sign was installed on the property. So this site has actually been home of several different commercial land uses. The building was originally a grocery store, the Johnston's Grocery, until 1932, and initially operated by G.J. Johnston. From 1940 to 1955, the building was occupied by the city's first do-it-yourself laundry, specifically Maytag. Then in a catering service was Cynthia's from 1958 to 1960. Then Sophia's Mexican food restaurant, followed by Lupita's Mexican food. Currently, the building serves as a community event center, the Landmark Event Center. The Sophia sign, as I mentioned, was installed around 1960, which was designated for the Sophia's Kitchen Mexican food restaurant. The Sophia sign has been symbolic and iconic sign associated with the local residents here in Casa Grande. The sign is considered a novelty neon sign comprised of the neon fountain at the top, followed by the 3 oval boxes reading tacos, tamales, and enchiladas, and the elongated rectangular box reading the Sophias. Moving on to our general plan policy, the importance of acknowledging and developing a strong base of community support for historic preservation efforts, particularly our signs. Our sign landmark criteria goes back to the mythology created, over 40 years old, displays any kind of unique or novelty design, displays good integrity where most of the intrinsic elements of the design are present, contributes to the context where the sign is located and or enhances the environment or the property, business, and location. And based on this sign criteria, the Johnston's Grocery Sophia sign falls under all these categories. Moving on to our historic preservation ordinance, the 6 criteria, with of course the last one being the owner's consent. This sign does meet on the criteria for landmark ordinance. Our first criteria is that the sign possesses special character, historic, aesthetic interest, or value as part of the community. The sign's significance is tied to the Sophia's Mexican food restaurant, as I mentioned, and the property. The sign was dated to around 1960, so the sign has been on the property for approximately 59 years. The sign is identified with historic personages. The sign has been identified with the original restaurant, Sofia Espinosa, and Christine Burton, who operated the restaurant until 1982 before it was sold. The sign is also tied to the designer, Pete Guerrero of Guerrero Lindsay Sign Company, who is also Sophia's relative. The next criteria relates to the distinguishing characteristics of an architectural sign. As I had mentioned, the Sophia sign is a neon novelty sign consisting of triple post steel box sign with a neon fountain at the top and the 3 oval boxes and the elongated rectangular box. Of course, you can see again the boxes mention the tacos, tamales, and enchiladas, and then Sophia's. Not only does the age of the sign provide significance, but the uniqueness in the sign's design contributes to the recommendation that the sign be designated as a local historic sign landmark. The next criteria is that the work of the designer has significantly influenced in age, and as I had mentioned, the sign was designed by Pete Guerrero of Guerrero Lindsay Sign Company, which is 4 generations of Guerreros today, and he was also Sophia's relative. And as far as the unique location, the sign's height, which was drawn to motorist attention along the highway back in the day. And today, the unique shape draws your attention while driving in the downtown area. Being that the sign has been on the property for 59 years, the sign has become a unique feature in the neighborhood. And the last criteria is that the owner, Greg Serrano, is in support of this designation for the sign landmark criteria. And with our ordinance, this just ensures that we are protecting and trying to protect our local historic landmarks. Staff's analysis is that the Historic Preservation Commission voted in favor to designate this sign as a local historic landmark with the 5-0 vote. Staff is in support of designating the Johnston's Grocery Sophia sign as a local historic sign landmark based on the fact that it meets all the local historic sign mark criteria. And moving on to the public notification and comments, staff has not received any public comments on this request to date. Staff's recommendation for this request is that the city staff and the Historic Preservation Commission recommend approval to designate the Johnston's Grocery Sophia sign as a local sign landmark. And that concludes staff's presentation for tonight.
Okay, and this is also, so I'm going to open the public hearing for any comments on Sophia's landmark sign.
Marge Jantz, 901 North Morrison Avenue. Just in case the question comes up, yes, I have spoken with Greg on more than one occasion, and most recently when I asked him, so if we're able to get some money, and he agreed to be our first candidate to restore his sign, if we can get some matching grants. I said, what would you put on that sign? He said, oh, I'd take it back just the way you see it tonight. And I said, you're kidding me. And he said, yeah, I would. I mean, there's a man that's really, really into Casa Grande's history. I mean, we know what he did with the property when he restored it, but he's willing to take that sign back to read Sophia's. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anyone in the audience? Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this and ask council if you have any questions. Bob?
I have a question why we're tying Johnston's Grocery. I mean, everybody in town knows that as the Sophia, and it never said Johnston's Grocery on it, right? I mean, it always said Sophia's.
Well, the building is from 1907, and in 1907 it was Johnston's Grocery Store. So historically, it has a historic.
Yeah, oh no, I understand that.
Yeah, it's just, I know, but I
We're
just.
dealing with this, we're not designating the building.
It already
That
is.
sign is what we're talking about.
We're just talking about the sign because I will make a comment that came up while we were going through this process. That building happens to be on the local and the historic National Register.
Okay.
And we have some others, like let's say the Women's Club. It's on those registers and it has a sign. And Paul Tice has said that because it's on those two registers, we don't really need to go through this process for the sign. But the reason why we're doing it on Johnston's Grocery Store is because the sign isn't attached to the building. It's adjacent to the building. So we have to go through the process for that reason.
So the Sophia sign.
And I just think it's great that he's willing to take it back to Sophia's.
Well, yeah.
Thank you, Marge.
If I could, Mayor and Councilmember Huddleston, although the staff's presentation and some of what the Historic Preservation Commission considered was the history of the area, the ordinance that don't mention Johnston's Grocery, it only talks about it as the Sophia sign.
And I have to say, I agree on that one.
And I don't know why that bothered me, but it just did.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
None.
Mr. Powell?
Our family moved here in 1951, and that was when the laundry was there for 5 years, which is probably the longest stay that anybody had in that particular building. And as kids, we'd never seen washing machines like that, so we like to go down until they'd run us off and kick us out of there.
Big time.
Check it out, and open the deal, and look and see what laundry looked like.
And we get bored with the internet.
Oh, yeah, so I remember it that way. That's obviously not how, Sophia's is how we remember it now, but I was gonna ask, when they redo the sign, Marge, the taco sign will be blue again, the tamales yellow, and the enchilada red and orange, right?
That's what he said.
All right, good.
Just like the picture.
Yep.
Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, then I'll entertain an ordinance, please, Gloria.
Ordinance number 3188, an ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, designating Sophia's sign as a local historic historic landmark and authorizing the city clerk to record all documents necessary to effectuate this ordinance with Pinal County Recorder's Office.
I move for the adoption of ordinance number 3188 as presented.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes.
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Councilmember Cortzen.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, last one, L3. Laura? I'm assuming this is yours too.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Mayor, council members, tonight we have the last sign of tonight, the Arizona Savings and Loan Casa Grande Valley Newspapers Local Historic Landmark Sign Designation. So this sign is located at 210 West 2nd Street. In 1915, the site was incorporated, and then in 1954, the building was constructed.
Arizona Savings
And loan.
Association.
A little bit more of the site history is the Arizona Savings and Loan Casa Grande Valley newspaper sign was installed in 1955. The sign has been existent for 64 years. The sign style is designed as a pole sign with curvilinear amoeba shape and square box on steel post. The original panels have been replaced to reflect the current tenant, and original neon has been removed. Moving on to our policy, and our policy of the general plan states the importance of preserving signs through historic preservation and protection. The historic sign survey methodology establishes that signs shall be over 40 years old, displays unique or novelty design, good integrity on the signs, contributes to the context, the location of the sign, and the property and or business where it's located. And based on this criteria for landmark designation, the Arizona Savings and Loan Casa Grande Valley newspaper sign falls under the criteria as mentioned. And our historic preservation landmark ordinance establishes a 6 criteria that it shall meet. And according to this criteria, the Casa Grande Valley newspaper sign, Arizona Saving and Loan sign falls under the 5 criteria, of course, also with the property owner's designation. The first criteria is possesses special character, historic, or interest as part of the culture or the local community or region. According to the historic property inventory, the building was constructed in 1954, as I had mentioned. The sign has been in existence for 64 years, and that has added historic value and character to this site and location. As I had mentioned, the building was formerly a bank, the Arizona Saving and Loan Association, and you can see in the picture there, prior to the Casa Grande Valley newspapers business. The sign is identified with historic personages. The Casa Grande Valley newspapers is privately owned and operated newspaper and commercial printing company. It was founded in 1912 by Evans T. Richardson, and the newspaper was purchased by Ruth and Donovan M. Kramer Sr. in 1962. The Arizona Newspapers Association named Donovan M. Kramer Sr. a master editor publisher in 1976 and inducted into the Arizona Newspapers Hall of Fame in 1998. Mr. Donovan Kramer Sr. continued as the editor and publisher of the Dispatch and Company president until his death in 2009. Ruth Kramer is a company president, and Donovan Kramer Jr. and Kara Cooper are the co-publishers of the company's publications. The next criteria relates to the distinguishing characteristics of the architectural style. This is a pole sign, however, it has a curvilinear amoeba shape connected to a square box on the steel posts. The shape of the sign, the age of the sign, and the fact that the building could potentially be listed as a historic building are contributing factors to the recommendation that the sign be designated as a local historic sign landmark. The next criteria is that the unique location or physical characteristics represents established and familiar visual feature. This sign's location is tied to the history of Highway 84, which was the main route east and west into Casa Grande, as original Highway 84 was located on Main Street, then relocated to Second Street, where the Casa Grande Valley Dispatch Building is currently located and sits off of Second Street. The sign's unique shape, the size of the sign, and the sign's height is prominent feature during the Second Street streetscape corridor downtown. And the last criteria is that the owner is in concurrence with this designation, and the owner, Casa Grande Valley Newspapers, Inc., has given their support and signature for designating the sign as a local historic sign landmark. Moving on to historic preservation ordinance. The ordinance is basically protection and enhancement of landmarks to promote the economic, cultural, educational, and general welfare of the public. Staff's analysis is that staff is in support of designating the Arizona Savings and Loan Casa Grande Valley Newspapers sign as a local historic landmark based on the fact that it meets our criteria that I mentioned for local landmark designation. In addition, the Historic Preservation Commission recommended a favorable recommendation to City Council with a 5-0 vote. And moving on to the public notification and comments, staff sent out public notice mailings, and the public hearing was also held at the Historic Preservation Commission. And since that time and with the meeting tonight, staff has not received any public comments on this request. Staff's recommendation is that city staff and the Historic Preservation Commission recommend the mayor and city council approve the designation tonight for the Arizona Savings and Loan Casa Grande Valley Newspapers historic sign as a local historic sign landmark. And that concludes staff presentation.
This is also a public hearing. So I'm going to open the floor to the public first, and we'll have council comment after that. Is there anyone in the public would like to address the council on this item L3? You don't have to, Marge.
I just want to say the Kramers are aware that they need to come to the Preservation Commission. And I think the thing that's so incredible about this sign is the amoeba shape. I mean, it's the only one in town. So, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else in the audience? Public? Okay, seeing none, then I'm going to close the public hearing portion. And any questions, comments, Mary?
I was just wondering, and maybe Marge can answer this, is there maybe a thought that at some point in time they'll restore it? Or is there ability to restore it to be again?
Or to be restored to neon again?
Yes.
That has not come up in any of the discussions.
Okay.
I mean, it is, we're just saving it as it is right now.
Okay.
Thanks for the history lesson, because I didn't know that. And the mid-century designs are so popular now with that building and then this amoeba shape of the sign. So I never knew that was a neon sign, because that was a little before my time. And I want to say the Arizona Savings and Loan was pretty bold, putting that 4.5% interest rate in there. I mean, so, you know, they were confident.
I can tell it's historic.
Laura, I wanted to say thank you before we're done with this sign series. This has been very informative, and thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura.
Anybody else? Thank you, Marge, too.
Absolutely. Got your exercise tonight, huh?
Okay, then I'll entertain an ordinance, please, Gloria.
Ordinance number 3189, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Casa Grande, Arizona, designating the Casa Grande Valley Newspaper, Inc. sign design and style as a local historical landmark, and authorizing the city clerk to record all documents necessary to effectuate this ordinance with Pinal County Recorder's Office.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of ordinance number 3189 as presented.
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Huddleston.
Yes?
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Herman.
Yes.
Councilmember Cortson.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. Okay, that concludes most of our business. One item left here is N for reports, and Mr. Powell, we'll start with you.
Well, a week ago, I was at the 9th floor at the city capital, or the capital of Arizona, in the executive building there. And it was pretty interesting. You go up to the 8th floor, and then you stop before you can go to the 9th floor, and they have to come down and get you and take you up. And we did get a chance to, there was 3 of us involved with it. A Native American from Parker that represents the oldest water rights in the state of Arizona, the Colorado River Indian tribes. And then luckily I had Mike Goodman, the supervisor, that was with us. And the 3 of us presented, and everybody you go to has their person that does this. And some of the ones, their job is to get you out of there as fast as they can. And we, however, did have a nice meeting with Chuck, and he sent us a good deal following up. The following Wednesday, I went back up, and we had a meeting with I remember Farm Bureau and the NFC, and they were all, and they were meeting there to visit with the legislators. So I got to visit with a couple of senators, and neither one of them had a clue about water, but they knew it was an issue. They just didn't really know what was going on. But I did meet Gail Griffith, who's she's one of the ones that makes smoke. And she had a copy of the map, and I had about 8 pages of material, and she said, that looks really good to me. So I'm gonna make an appointment to go back up and talk to her, and I think that's the way to go, is through our locals. I've been with most of the representatives, both senators, Arizona senators in Washington, whatever, and visited with their people. Everybody says you can do it, it'd work, but it's gonna take all 7 states working together in the Colorado Basin to get it done. So we hope it will proceed. It's been sent back to Washington with the NFC and NRC, Natural Resource Conservation District, and they've got it on their list back there, and as I say, Farm Bureau has here in Arizona. So we're getting support, and one of the things that's become quite apparent is that a lot of these things that we have plenty of water for development is the fact that they assume they're going to get rid of all the farms. And if they get rid of all the farms, we've got Pinell County is in the top 2% of counties in the United States for farm revenues. And we have $2 billion worth of receipts from that. And if they come in and say you have to fallow 40% of your fields, they're going to force it out. And I hope that we don't have to get to that. And I hope we're able to get a new source of water, which would really open things back up again, because it's getting nasty. And that's all I have.
Okay. Matt?
Thanks. Had a great opportunity to attend the Chamber Awards banquet. I want to congratulate Miss Marge Jantz out there and Mayor McFarland on their award. It's great to have the jazz band play, and it was a great night and a lot of fun. So that was awesome. And Larry, I want to tell you, I got a concern from a citizen about the curb in front of the VFW that 5 people tripped there at the street fair. I'll give you their information. Not here. Just remind me. One thing I noticed around town, and everybody as well as the city needs to take care of their weeds. It's been a great rainy year, and I tell you, the city's trying to keep up with it, and we have a lot of property, and I hope everybody does too. But we know it's an issue, and we're going at it. And a really neat bit of news is Mr. Colin Thomas. Is he still up there? He's waving from the crow's nest. He is a Casa Grande Union High School graduate. He is an alumni of the Youth Commission, and he is our newest city intern. And he goes to CAC. He's in the film, taking film and classes and whatever else, media classes. And he's an intern with the department now. So, and he's here tonight working. So that was a real highlight of the night tonight. Thanks, Colin.
Bob?
Yes, I also, as many of us, attended the chamber dinner and thoroughly enjoyed that. Again, congratulations to you and to Marge for your awards. On the 29th, I attended the Central Arizona Government's board meeting, and we discussed a lot of the items that came up today when we were attending the CAG and Sun Corridor Legislative Day. Mayor McFarland and Donna McBride were both in attendance as well. I wanted to point out one thing that's a little disappointing on one side, but prideful in another. We had 14 legislative members that confirmed that they would attend the legislative day today. And on time, and they're ready to talk, were our representatives T.J. Shope and Frank Pratt. They were very gracious. They answered all of our questions, got a lot of information. And I think, Mayor, I heard you saw a total of 4. I only saw 3.
I think there were 3.
3. We out of 14, we only had 3 that showed up. So that was the disappointing part. But good for TJ and good for Frank. They did us well today. So that's my report.
Okay. Lisa?
Me? Same thing, congratulations, Mayor, at the Chamber, and Marge. But I did want to talk a little bit about the general plan meeting. Several of us, actually most of us were there, and I was just really impressed with the participation. You know, we've had these public meetings, and actually I was on the general plan committee 10 years ago, and I don't remember having a group like that, but it was just really nice to see people that just were interested in what's going on. The gentleman at my table is just a citizen that just wanted to see what was happening and wanted to give his input and gave some really good input. And so I think just the way Paul's team handled that and Larry just getting the input and the way the whole day was coordinated, I just thought it was a great way to get people's input and let them know what was going on. So yeah, I was just really impressed with the whole thing. I mean, weren't there about 100 something people? Yeah, so that was great. And then the service awards, you know, congratulations to all of our employees. I mean, it's just amazing when you go to those city service awards to see how many years people have worked with, dedicated their lives to the city. I think the most was 40 years?
40, Rod.
40, Rod was 40 years. So, yeah, so it's always nice to see all the people that have stayed with the city and served the citizens for so long. So that is pretty much it with me.
Okay.
Last week, I attended the Waste Management Sustainability Forum. Didn't get a chance to go coffee, but I did see there were people from all over the world at this forum. I would say in attendance, 200 plus people, and a lot of them CEOs from major corporations and that. Somehow I keep getting invited. And here was something that I learned. So we had the general meetings and that, and then we had the breakouts, and so you were into different, so there was like the bottle people for plastic bottles for whatever, and I was textiles, and I was like, what? So here's some facts. Average U.S. citizen throws away 70 pounds of clothing and other textiles annually. 95% of textiles have the potential to be recycled or reused, but only 15% of unwanted clothing is recycled or reused. The amount of landfill clothing has increased by 50%. And so I'm wondering, I'd like to visit with Kevin after this to see how much we have in ours. Keeping clothing in use just 9 extra months can reduce the carbon-related water and waste footprints by 20 to 30%. 61% of wearable clothes are exported. Countries are beginning to restrict the importing of clothing since it is often unusable and ends up as waste in these countries. Approximately 35% of donated clothing is made into industrial rags.
One cotton t-shirt uses an average of 1/3 pound of pesticides and can require, and Dick, you'll like this one, as much as 700 to 800 gallons of water to manufacture. So I really felt fortunate that I got the textile part because I really learned a lot. Quickly, I had one of the people at my table is one of the CEOs regionally for Goodwill. He said, even if your clothes have holes in them, if they're non-wearable, bring them because they sell them by the pound or by the ton to manufacturers. There was a young lady there, young because she was under 35, who has started who has a company that takes clothing, melts the clothing. They can melt everything as long as they take the grommets off and there's no screen printing. They turn it into thread, and they have 4 major companies who are manufacturing clothes out of this recycled thread from recycled clothing. And one of them is Patagonia, one is Stella McCartney, who happens to be Paul McCartney's daughter, and the other is Target. And so we need to be looking for that. And I'm going to continue to bring this because I feel like as a city, it's our duty to educate people. And even though right now we're unable to participate as we did before in recycling, if we continue to do these things and be aware of that, and hopefully we'll find markets, and the markets will come with such people as this young lady that's invented this thread to make clothing.
Cool.
Donna?
I don't know if I can top that. Just mentioned the general plan, and I thought it was interesting because most of the time, average citizens are not going to come to that kind of event. And the fact that we had it at the community center, I remember one lady came in and she had just done Zumba and jumped in to see what it was and stayed for 3 hours. And so I think we brought in some folks because of the community center, so that just is an added benefit. Of course, ditto on the award ceremony to Marge and the mayor. And I believe, Bob, when you had mentioned about the legislative day today, it was Mrs. Steele from Tucson that joined us as well. And I was impressed that she was there because she really didn't have to be. A couple other things I want to mention. The point in time that we had, I wanted to do a shout out. We were all there as volunteers for the day, and we showed up at 6:30. In my group, for the point in time count, we had Sergeant Jacob Robinson from the police department who was with us. And it was really interesting to watch him because they interact with our homeless population every single day. He was so kind, not just to us, but he had such a way with those folks that we came across and talked to. And I think our group interviewed 22 sites, individuals and stuff. And I just, it gave me a profound respect for the work that they do every day, because we're sitting up here and we're trying to make policy around that and do things. But for him to come, and it was his day off, and he came in. So I just wanted to mention that. And then the years of service, also you had mentioned about the 40-year Rod Wood. I had the pleasure of working with him when I was on the Parks and Rec, and he taught me how to do shovels and a little bit of everything when we were building out at the mountain. So hats off to him. I think he is the longest employee, if I'm right, in the city, and 40 years is a lot of dedication, so I appreciate that. And then lastly, this coming Saturday, the roller derby is going to have their grand opening at the old gym where the Boys and Girls Club was. The mayor and I will be there at 11:30, and you never know who you're going to find on skates. So come on out and join us.
Who's that, you?
Donna? I've been threatened not to get on those skates.
Have we got a team from the city, Donna?
Yeah, it's Donna and me.
You just never know. You never know, Mr. Powell.
All right, thanks, everybody. Also, just to throw in there too, we did do smart smoke alarms back a couple Saturdays. We replaced a bunch of smoke alarms. So, Chief, thanks to your crew and all the help and even the with the explorers that were out there. And I know the LDS Church had some of their young people out there, so I was with two young LDS guys that were very adept at knocking on doors. And they did a really good job. And they knew how to screw in a screw, so that was an added benefit. Anyway, we replaced, how many, do you know how many we had replaced? Okay, so we'll give you an update on that. And then, again, the general plan was, I just want to thank everybody who put all the time into that. John, also for your public outreach too, so I'm sure that helped us get a few people there as well. And I think the process is going well. I was impressed with the people that were there, and they were also, I think, impressed with the process. I did attend, I think, Mary, you mentioned the GPEC event that you went to. Wasn't it a GPEC? No. Never mind, sorry, I'm not supposed to ask that. Anyway, that night they had a reception for all the venture capitalists and all the site selectors, so I attended that. And it was very interesting to talk to some of these folks from California especially that were here and had never been here, which I found interesting. What else do you guys haven't mentioned already? We did have the Boys and Girls Club Bunko event this past Friday. It was very successful. I think over 200 Bunko players and another 30 poker players, so it was a pretty exciting evening. I didn't win at poker, unfortunately. And then this week, I've got a meeting tomorrow with Governor Lewis, who's the GRIC, the Gila Indian River Community, and we're going to be talking about I-10 widening. So we have just a meeting with myself, the MAG director, which is Eric Anderson, and then also a couple other people. So we're going to have some time to get a feel for where the Gila tribe is on that I-10 widening. They were supposed to have a press conference, and the governor was going to be there, Governor Ducey, to announce the bridge money and all that stuff, but it's been pushed back. But we're still going to meet with Governor Lewis, so it'll still be a good meeting. And then we go to a Growing Water Smart event with Mr. Powell, myself, Paul Tice, and a couple of Steve Miller from the county. So we'll have that should be an interesting process where hopefully we'll learn a little bit about some additional water policy that we can maybe get incorporated into our own water policy. And that's probably enough for now. So, census, Census 2020 meeting next week.
Still?
Yeah, we're still meeting. Isn't it next week?
Well, I think so.
Oh, well, I'm supposed to remind everybody.
Yeah, just remind
Don't
everyone
forget
for
to
the
fill out your
census.
census,
Yeah.
March 12th.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
it.
But we also have a meeting next week on Thursday, so if anybody's interested in that. Okay, that's it. Anybody else have anything else? All right, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Second?
Okay, moved and seconded to go into executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll stand adjourned for 5 minutes to clear the room.